Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. All right, first question. Hi Jason, about Mike Israetel's hypertrophy guidelines, how would it change as far as sets per week for someone who liked training with lower reps, say 4 to 8 versus 8 to 12 on big exercises? He recommends around 15 to 20 sets for side delts and around 15 for biceps, if I remember. Could I just add lateral raises and direct arm work on off days instead of adding fluff exercises at the end of my workouts? I'm already sick tired. Is there too much risk that it would interfere with pulling and pressing exercises? Thanks. This is going to come down to how much workload you're doing. It's going to come down to individual recovery. And even then, 4 to 8 raises, why does that matter? Okay, look at it this way. Go look at the data that we have on muscle growth and what we know. It's your last 5 reps within muscle failure with normal tempo reps that cause a training response. How is doing a set of 6 reps with your 7 rep max any different than doing a set of 10 reps with your 11 rep max? They have the exact same hypertrophic response. So why does that matter? It only matters when you're dropping below, say, 5 reps, because then it's not possible to get 4 or 5 quality reps, right? You're only getting somewhere between 1 and 3, like if you're running 3 rep sets. So you might need a little more volume to get a similar hypertrophic response, and then you have sometimes the additional fatigue of the weight. So when you're dealing with medium rep ranges like that, even something like 5 to 8, drop the 4 out of there, it's not a concern. Like it's not any different in terms of that. So as far as the other things go, why not just do them at the end? That's what you see me do. Look at any of my workouts lately, because I do all this stuff on my system. I save that direct work. I don't do that on my off days. I do it afterwards. So what if you're a little tired? It doesn't take any energy to do 5 sets of curls. I mean, it's a silly ass tiny exercise. All right. You're working tiny little muscles with light weights. You don't have to have any energy or strength left. And if those muscles are already fatigued, you're still getting additional workload. So what if you're a bit weaker on them? It's not a big deal. Like the stuff I do on off days is just because they're muscles that need continuous work. But they're still a different form of exercise. Like I do hyperextensions, I do abs, I do face pulls pretty much almost every day. But we're dealing with something a little different there. As far as those direct muscles like that, because you need that additional hypertrophy, fine, just do them at the end of your workout. What's the problem? They're not that hard to work in, brother. They really aren't. All right, next question. Hey Jason, is it a good idea to overhead press and bench on the same day, assuming I'm doing full body 3 times a week? Yeah, it's fine. My Ice Cream Fitness 2.0 is written that way. You guys have seen me do it that way, right? You've seen me come in and do benching up to 5 sets and then do up to 3 to 5 sets of overhead press on the same day. It's perfectly acceptable. It's all about total fatigue management. All right, it's about total fatigue management. Now, are you going to have to press slightly less? Yeah. If you're tired from doing benching, yes, you're going to use a little less weight on the standing press, but it's perfectly acceptable. And again, this is for people who are at a certain threshold doing full body. Now, for certain advanced lifters, once you're bench pressing a certain amount of weight, yeah, you might run into problems trying to do multiple days of pressing every week if you're also doing heavy benching on those days with certain things like max effort work, or it's something I found to be a problem with more concurrent periodization. It can be really problematic working them both in. But you're also doing much higher volumes of training and oftentimes doing heavier training on different days of the week, so it can be a little more problematic. But let's say you're working basic stuff in the 4 to 8 rep range, or even up to 10 or 12, that's fine. You might be doing a concurrent style of training while you're doing full body, or you might be doing block periodization with full body. Totally acceptable to do it afterwards. Just understand that you're going to be a little weaker on the press, but it shouldn't be a problem for you as long as you're within your total maximum recoverable volume. It should be fine. I program stuff that way. You've seen me run it that way, and I have programs where it's written that way. It can be done. All right, next question. Man, it looks like this is going to be Dr. Mike Israetel day in the Q&As. Hey, Jason, I've just read a post by Dr. Mike saying he wants to do some bodybuilding shows later this year. I love Dr. Mike and his knowledge is solid. Why would experts like him decide to do this kind of shows when research shows how taxing they are to the body? It makes no sense. He already looks great. What's your take on this, coach? I know you like Dr. Mike too. Thanks. Okay, here's what you need to understand. People don't get to Mike's size level who aren't extreme personalities. Okay? They don't. People don't compete at the national level in powerlifting or any sport who don't have extreme personalities. It's simply a different personality type. It's a different personality type. Mike is a competitor. Look how many things Mike has competed in. Powerlifting, BJJ. He takes all of these as serious competitive endeavors. Mike is the sort of person that needs a competitive environment in order to drive him forward, and that's what he chooses to do. And in the case of someone like Dr. Mike, look at some of his statements about drugs and things. I mean, he talks about, responsible use of insulin and stuff. You don't think Mike uses insulin and other things? I'm not making any accusations there, but listen to what he says about some of these different drugs. You don't think he adds insulin to his steroid stacks? So at a certain threshold, Mike's desire to be bigger, Mike's desire to be competitive, Mike's desire to do these other things is something that he outweighs against his health. And that's a personal choice. So I think what you need to remember is just because he chooses to do it doesn't mean that it's healthy. It doesn't mean that he thinks it's healthy, and it doesn't mean that he thinks it won't shave years off of his life. Just keep in mind, we're dealing with extreme personalities. And here's what I would say to anyone out there. Don't go compete in something that's going to be harmful to your health if you're the sort of person who can be happy not doing it. All right? Therein lies the difference. If you're the sort of person who can be happy not competing in an extreme endeavor, then there's no need to force yourself to do it. But if you're the sort of person that's happiness and well-being requires you to be in the competitive arena, that is part of your deep identity, and you can't be happy otherwise, it may take 20 years off your life. But in that case, you have to deal with individual personality types versus quality of life. I'm still not going to endorse that anyone compete in bodybuilding. I think it's ridiculous, and I think it's a stupid death cult. But it is what it is. He's the sort of person, he's a competitor by nature. And to him, it's just another form of competition to do and challenge himself with. All right, next question. Hello, Jason. I'm doing Ice Cream Fitness 2.0, and I really like it. However, I'm having a problem with the press, one of my favorite lifts. The press is nearly at the end of my routine, so at that moment, I don't have enough strength to perform it. My question for you is, can I do the press after squats, which is the first lift in the Ice Cream Fitness 2.0? Thank you so much for the answer. What do you mean you can't do it? Do you mean that you're so tired that you can't handle the empty 45-pound bar for sets of 5? And go get one of the women's bars. Do 30 pounds. Yes, you are probably going to be slightly weaker on the press after doing the other lifts and performing the bench press. That's normal. We all are. Every single one of us are. In fact, for me to hit that goal last year of the 225 strict press originally, I had to put it into separate days from my bench. But then once I got there and then got a little stronger, I was able to hit it on the same days that I hit a max bench, right? But I had to rotate it out. But that's only because I had a certain goal I wanted to reach. Does it mean that I wasn't gaining strength still on the press just because I was forced to do 205 after benching and couldn't hit the 225? Of course not. Look at it from that perspective. You're still getting the training effect. Just because you're weaker at it doesn't mean you can't do it. You just have to condition your body to learn to do this exercise in a fatigued state. You have to do it in a fatigued state. And isn't that what you would have to do in a competitive environment anyways? I mean, if you were to go do, say, a strength lifting meet and do the press, right, competitively, you're going to have to squat to a max first. You're going to have to do 3 heavy-ass squats first. You're probably going to have to hit your lifetime ever best squat and then go do the press. It's normal. It's like the guys who complain they can't deadlift after squatting, and then they train it separately, and then they get to a meet and they have to deadlift after squatting, and then they're 50 pounds less than what they've hit in a gym, or 100 pounds less than they've ever hit in a gym. Well, that's how it works. You got to learn to train in these fatigue states. All right, next question. Hey Jason, would adding Olympic lifts or something similar to a program be a good way to get extra volume without beating up your recovery too much? If so, how would you incorporate them? Oh man, this is a topic that I flip-flopped on over the years. I'll be honest, like people accuse me of flip-flopping. A lot of my things aren't flip-flopping. This is a flip-flop. I've said before, oh yeah, you can use them to build muscle, they're great. Use them for extra stuff. But realistically, I'll go back to my original stance that I said years ago, because I kind of went the other direction on that for a while, being influenced by starting strength and stuff. I'm going to go back to my original stance that I had years ago, that I had forever, my entire life up until a couple years back, and I flip-flopped a little bit. Probably not. Probably not. These are highly technical lifts that once you're doing them fatigued, meaning any sort of real rep work, you have form degradation, technique degradation. They're highly technical lifts. If you're simply trying to get extra volume through different things in the body, there are just better exercises you could use. Now, I'm not saying if you like Olympic lifting, then by all means, you can do some things that'll carry over to your Olympic lifting. You could do some push presses. You could do barbell rows. You could do front squats, like pendlay rows. All right, all that stuff can be used to add some extra full body fatigue in a way that will carry over to those Olympic lifts and hypertrophy, some of those things and those movement patterns. I just think the highly technical nature of the Olympic lifts isn't really ideal for doing just metabolic fatigue work and for more volume at the end of your training. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.